What's up YouTube, fish tube and fish fam? This is Robert the Freeze Aquariums. Today I'm coming to you with kind of a quick video, kind of an update. As some of you have known that have followed my channel, I've been running the new Fluval Series 7 407 canister in my 55-gallon community tank. And the first time that I'm actually cracking it open, and it's on this tank. So pretty simple. I had it running, wanted to make sure, because I don't run it full tilt, so this lever right here, I'll basically show you from the beginning. So with this, I had the filter running. I took this lever from the on position, or semi-on, while it was running, closed it. That way it still has some water in the lines, so when I go back to restart it, it should be just a matter of a quick prime with the handle and done. So with that, I can feel there's still water in there. So with the new design, it's supposed to be quicker and easier. It's just a matter of popping that up slowly. And as you can see, if you leave pressure on this back here, and some of it may be a little bit of the water that dripped when I pulled it. But as you can see, it's pretty clean as far as, or pretty simplistic as far as getting ready to clean the filter. Just that little bit of water because I had pressure still going to it when I was first pulling it to see. So let's get this pulled out. We'll get it out in the kitchen and we'll see how dirty it is. Okay, so moving it was fairly simple. Just wiping some of the dust off. But as you can see, there we go. Very little water above the connection. Just a little bit that I had put on there. Simple to move. Did not spill any water. So let's crack this puppy open and see what we got. Take these two fingers, you pull them out, pushing it all the way down so that it does the job for you, and voila. Okay, here we go. Gotta back off of those handles just a little bit to let these fingers clear the lock up in there. Okay, same thing over here. All right. And there we have it. So as you can see, now some debris does find its way up into the impeller area, but not a lot. So far with this filter, oh, that's just a split. It's not too bad. So there is some residual stuff in there. Alright, so I'm going to switch this camera around and try to make it a little bit easier. But before I do that, your pre-filter, and just pick up on it, pulls right out. Definitely gunked up and was in need of a clean. Look at all that muck on there. With its combination of beneficial bacteria. So the pre-filter, you can see there's some plant debris on there. Some sawasatang that loves to get sucked up in this filter no matter what I do to keep it away from it. All in all, I mean, it's not, the pre-filter definitely does a good job at keeping things at bay. But the best part, I guess I can take this out for right now. It's drained. Is, you know, here I am with a cell phone recording in one hand and a finger pulling out the baskets in the other. I knew it was time for a clean. I noticed the spray bar was starting to slow on the output. There's the inside. That's pretty cruddy. But as you see it going into the sink, it's got some filth in it. All in all, the inside is fairly clean. With the amount of gunk in here, mold, debris, which you'll see right there. With this much mold, muck, garbage, everything in here, this was still running decent. The output was decent, slowed, but not terrible. There was still plenty of surface agitation. And it was doing its job still. The one thing that I did notice, though, that like this type of stuff, you would start to see a little bit of debris making its way back in the tank. It was very minimal bypass, but that's also where, you know, doing your tank husbandry is needed. It's our jobs to maintain, and the better you maintain your equipment, the longer it's going to last. So my initial thoughts following up on the Fluval Series 7 407, I think it's done a fantastic job. As you can see inside, there's very little muck in there, so pretty impressed right now. The only really down thing I have to say is dealing with Fluval. As far as their customer service, their warranties, you know, unfortunately in this day and age, a lot of people don't necessarily read warranties. So Fluval, at least this person I dealt with, uses it against people. Well, obviously you read the limited warranty. So, you know, going back and forth with this person was aggravating. And, you know, I said I might reconsider my onwards patronization, I think that's the right word, patronizing the Fluval brands, the Hagen Fluval brands, because I'm not happy with customer service. But that's besides the point. That's not customer service. So as much as I'm impressed with this filter right now, and generally looking over it and going, wow, you know, this is pretty clean, everything looks great, there's not a lot of buildup. My fear is if and when something goes wrong with this, how much garbage am I going to have to deal with going forward? I am going to get this all cleaned out. And you probably said, well, why is he putting in his sink? Is he going to use sink water? Nope, I actually have a pail of tank water off the side. But I will say something. Way back when I first got into the hobby, way back in the 80s, I worked for Petco, and that was like, they were just opening stores, they were just coming into being an actual store, and nobody knew about tank water. Everybody rinsed. For years, my 20-gallon tank, I cleaned everything out in sink water, and we didn't have Prime back then. We didn't know about chlorines, at least at my age, because I was fairly young. Things like that, you know, we didn't do anything. We cleaned everything, rinsed everything, you know, wiped everything out, put it back together, turned it back on, back to business. So there are times that, especially if, you know, I just don't have the time, but I need to get something maintained, something clean, I'll do it still today under tap water. I think a lot goes into effect where you live, how much they treat the water. You know, if you're on a well, you know, those things, if you're on a well, you don't have to worry about it because it's pretty much, you know, untreated water. As well as closer to the city or into a city where they're, you know, because of the usage and the demand on the system, they may be loading that water with tons of chlorine or chloramines. And where I'm at, I'm a little bit away from the cities, kind of in the, not really the suburbs, not rural, like kind of in between, you know. But the water here is pretty decent out of the tap. The pHs are low, or are almost neutral. You don't get that heavy smell of chlorine. But with that being said, you know, nowadays, I still know people that still use sink water. One thing you don't want to do is, if you're going to clean your filter, don't do a water change. Wait 2 weeks or more to do a water change. You don't want to upset that cycle balance. If you do a water change, wait 2 weeks or so to clean your filter. By using tank water, yes, you're going to reduce killing off your beneficial bacteria. Some. Regardless, you're not going to totally wipe out your bacteria. It's still in there, it's still colonizing, it's still growing. With that being said, however, by doing that, you're reducing the amount of beneficial bacteria that is in your filter, and that now it has to play catch up in your tank. So algae blooms or biological blooms, that's your bacteria colonizing to try to catch up to handle the load that's in your tank, your fish, your crabs, your shrimp, whatever it may be, or a combination thereof. So, you know, that is an adverse and a stressor on your inhabitants, which is where you start to experience death. They are stressed out because you know, it's like, here it is winter, at least in my neck of the woods, and it's 30 degrees outside right now, I think. And, you know, your heat was on last night when you went to bed comfy and cozy. Now we'll just say, for argument's sake, the pilot light on your heater went out. You don't have heat. You got up this morning. You're stressing because once you set foot out of that bed, it's cold. Same thing with the fish. There's a certain comfortability in that tank, be it temperature, be it pH, nitrates, not nitrites. So by reducing your bacterias, it does hurt. You know, it's causing an unnecessary stress. So to err on the side of caution, you know, use your tank water. You know, with this unit, you flick this, comes right off. Now I have access to clean any buildup on there. I can clean out here, as well as pull the motor out, or pull the impeller out and clean out all of that. So looking at this, you can see, you know, it's pretty brown with some crud. Nothing really invasive, nothing that's going to stop it from working. I think a lot of this is some of the food that I feed. See the difference? Nice and clean. Well, almost clean. So it's just a matter of, you know, taking some tank water, clean her up. You can get in there and dump water all over your counter. That's what it's supposed to look like. So, I mean, all in all, it still ran beautifully. It's easy to unassemble, and I like to clean these off. I don't want anything to impede water flow. I want the water flow as optimum as I can get it, have the impeller spin as smoothly and effortlessly as possible. And, you know, maintenance is key. So get in here and clean this all out. As you can see, it's actually gray in there. So I'm finished cleaning this up. And another thought that I had when I was talking to you about, you know, using sink water or tap water, and I realized I don't think I said it, was, now I took out maybe a gallon or so of water. So when I put this back together, I pre-fill it because I don't want to drop the level on the tank too much, because I'm not going to be due for another water change for at least another week or two. I used Prime, but I also use, and I'm a big proponent now of Fritz's ACCR powder, which if I had it somewhere nearby, I would show it to you. But if you go back and you look at my video about swaps, it's actually in there. So it's a powder. does the same job, and then probably more than the Prime. Either way, Prime, ACCR, Jungle Products, Tetra Products, water conditioners to move the chlorine and chloramines out of the water. So, as not to cause stress, I will add the appropriate amount. And here, because 1 teaspoon treats 40 gallons, it's a matter of maybe just a few grams, just something in there to remove any chlorine, especially with the season change and rain. They could have bumped up the chlorine in the water. And you can actually go to your public water website and see what they've treated the water with, if they've treated it, how much. So it kind of helps you. I mean, it's one added step, but if you're somebody that's really conscientious about caring for your inhabitants, that's something that takes a couple minutes. You're probably surfing an article about, the next fish you want to buy or some sort of issue in your tank. Take a look at your public water website page and take a look. So just adding a little bit in there to err on the side of caution and get rid of it. I have Zeocarb, and I do a planted tank. I don't normally use carbon. The question is, well, doesn't it take the nutrients out of your tank? It will a little bit, but I don't think it'd be to the point that your plants are going to die. If you notice anything happening to your plants and nothing in your routine has changed, then yeah, it's probably taking more out than you're dosing. So to counteract that, just increase the doses or increase the frequency of dosing and see if that does it. If that's the case, then don't worry. Carbon basically is used to get rid of medications in your water. Also helps to get rid of the smell, which if everything is working right, you should only have like maybe a little bit of an earthy smell, but nothing crazy. But anyway, I got this, I think it was either on clearance or it came with it. I don't remember. But the Fluval Zeocarb dual action removes heavy metals, organic contaminants, decolorization, odors, toxic ammonia, creates sparkling, crystal clear water for a healthy aquarium. So does doing your job, doing your water changes, cleaning glass inside, and so on. So with that being said, it almost sounds like you could put this in there and not have to use anything, but it's the zeolite that's actually taking care of the metals and contaminants and ammonia. So you still want to put, unless you put this together empty and you just put it back on your tank, and you've used your tank water, then you don't have to do any of this. But if you've used it and you've used sink water, just put a little bit of Prime in there when you put your water back in, and you don't have to worry. So this is how it comes. Now it's funny because this is probably something that might be taken for granted as well. A lot of times they'll tell you rinse it. I think I've even read some places talk about rinse it in your sink. Well, what are you doing? Aren't you putting that water that you're trying to clean out the chlorines and stuff into your product that you're going to stick back in your canister? Food for thought. Take it a step further. You make Repashy, you make Dr. Tim's gel foods, you make your own foods up for the skyr, for your shrimp, whatever it may be, and you're using tap water. Now you're putting it into what your fish and shrimp are eating on. So again, ACCR is safe to use with fish food. Mix a little bit in with your water when you make your Repashy or whatever, and you've taken the worry out. So with this is kind of a combination of what you saw me take out, the black stuff, and the zeolite, which is the white chunks. So I'm going to replace all of that with this instead, and I'm going to add Phosguard to take out any residual phosphates that are in there. So just to show you how well of a job that filter was doing, the before and afters. Pretty mucky. Look how clean those are. You can actually see in the pores. So they are all wrung out, clear water coming out. So we can reinstall those back into the bottom tray. and they're cut to fit. And you can certainly find this stuff and make your own to save a few bucks. You put it with the ribbed side or convoluted edges down. These are cut to shape as well. And then you do the other side, and then you just slide all your trays back in and put it back in, and you're ready to go to work. And again, another before and after. And you can definitely feel when you get these clean, you can feel the weight difference. So this is part of the pre-filter, and looking at the before and after kind of tells you that this pre-filter was a good idea. It's getting the job done. As you saw inside the baskets, you know, there was some debris, but not a lot, because this pre-filter is catching it before it ever gets into your filter. So that definitely works. Also, as I mentioned, ACCR Fritz Pro, and the reason that I was actually able to show it to you was I had filled the canister back up with tap water. So I mixed in about 1/4 of a teaspoon, 1/8 of a teaspoon, to remove any of the harmful stuff in there. Then I seeded it. I squeezed a little bit of that gunk juice in there, so that way I'm putting bacteria back in there, and then when I put the baskets back in, the bacteria can go right into the mechanical filtration. It can go in and around the bio rings and basically start to recolonize, speeding it up. And as you can see, you might not be able to see because it'll spill. This is all the gunk that was in the pre-filter. I still have yet to clean these, which is another reason why I did it in my sink, because I can rinse all that away, and I have one of these that catches the big stuff, so I can just throw it in the garbage. All right, so your before and afters. That's funny because the consistency of this sponge feels like the same consistency, and I'm pretty sure, even looking at the pores and how it stains, these are the same sponges that they use in the Aquaclears. If you had a way to cut them, you could probably buy the replacement blocks and make your own pre-filter pads. All right, so as you see, all nice and clean. Water comes down into it, gets pushed in, pre-filter catches it, sends it in, sends it out, sends it through. So now that these are nice and clean, notice where the angles are. These fit right in here so that it traps anything so it doesn't bypass. Or if it does, it's minimal. So that's it back in. And then on the back side is where your other pads would go. Foam bricks, foam blocks. And they come all the way up to the top. And it just, the fit is so tight that it leaves very little bypass. I mean, micro sized bypassing. Okay, so clean, reassembled, and you can see how it like pushes down. So when you take these apart and you clean them, you kind of have the indentations to show you exactly where they go back in. And you kind of pull these up around this little tip. So now you have it seated against here, which I don't know if you'll be able to see. So it's seated up against there, and then it's pulled up and towards one another, so that again it cuts down or almost eliminates that bypass. And that's just in the pre-filter. I got to thinking, now that I have everything clean and thrown out all the unnecessaries, now I have an open tray. So I was debating, being I do have one tray full of bio balls, or bio rings, that I already have a decent amount of mechanical filtration, and just to give more surface space for the bacteria. I know it comes up for discussion quite a bit about, can you have too much filtration? Can you increase your bacteria more by adding more bacteria area and all this other stuff? To speak specifically to increasing your bacteria surface area, your beneficial bacteria will only grow to the size of the demand. So if you have a moderate stock tank, it's going to grow to accommodate what's in there. It's not going to go above, and it shouldn't go below unless you've done something. Is it nice to have more surface area for it? Sure. Kind of lets them spread out a little bit more, be a little more effective in doing their job. But you can't grow or colonize more bacteria than there is in the tank. You basically, if you could, you'd starve it out and kill it. So, at any rate, because I had this empty tray, and a few of you guys know how much I love Biomech from Eheim, which look like chiclets. I could find one that wasn't uncrusted. There you go. So I have those and what look like tricks. This is National Geographic's bio balls, and I had taken filter down and swapped it out for this. So I had all this, that bag was leaking, left over. So I thought, what better to do than use it on this? Again, I'm not trying to increase the beneficial bacteria, because you just can't do it. But by doing this, I'm giving more surface area, but I'm also ensuring that, it's Black Friday, or was Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Everybody's got sales going on, even on fish. So I know there's a few fish that I wanted to add to the existing tank, thus increasing the bio load, but also giving the beneficial bacteria the area to grow to meet that demand. So that's kind of being proactive instead of reactive. All right, so as you can hear, I have water in here already, and there are grooves inside, which you can see one right here, to tell you where to put everything back. Push it down till it bottoms out. You guys, if you decide to get a filter and you realize that an FX series isn't what you really need, I think on a 75 gallon, 100 gallon, but you might be pushing it, but a 75 gallon and down, this is optimal, especially now that they have the spray bar that they just brought out here. I think it was 6 months to a year after the launch. Definitely makes a difference. Or you can use it as is. It has the little duck spray wand, and that does a great job at moving water. So you have your foam with the rib side down. You have your floss. Have your bio rings. And I really don't feel a need to hot rod this. I was actually thinking about cutting some of the foam blocks that I have, or I actually have polyfill that I just pulled out. I was going to actually stick polyfill, and I said no, I think between the pre-filter and what's in this in the bottom, I don't think I really need too much more. And the fact that I'm running the Aquaclear 110 as well. So I have two of the, there we go, the rings and the Biomech and the bio balls Then I have the Zeocarb and I have the Fosguard in the top. So that will be the last thing that touches as the water exit. So with this, again, they're shaped to fit in to your canister top on. And then this one will go into the cutout, and then of course your impeller goes over your baskets. What I like to do especially is maintenance again is key. I like to wet my seal so I don't pinch it, I don't tear it, I don't chafe it, because your seal is right here. When you get this the seal is not on it, so make sure it comes in the pack. Make sure you put the seal on before you put it all together, or you're going to be in for a rude and wet awakening. So with this, you can also use a food grade silicone to wrap around it. I know some folks use Vaseline. Being that I worked in the baby food industry for a short time, for some time I guess, I had access to the food grade silicone that we used on the machines to make baby food, so I know it's safe. So you basically line everything up. You see there's a notch where the 407 plate is, and there's a notch in the canister, so that if you're not paying attention, at least you know where they go. Make sure your fingers are out. Make sure that your O-ring is at least wet or lubricated. Flip your fingers. So when you take it apart and you push down, it raises the top for you. But now I have the fingers in place. Just snap it in and make sure these clip, and that will drop your motor in and lock it in place. So you're all set. Your canister is clean. It's fairly quick to clean. Efficient, yes. Easy to clean, certainly. Do I like it? Oh yeah, I love it. I just don't like Fluval's gameplay with their warranty. So far, I have not had issues with this one. This is the longest running one that I've had. Like I said, it's probably over 6 months. First time that I've opened it. The other one I just put into service here probably 4 months ago, 3 months ago, somewhere in there. So I haven't opened that one yet. It definitely cleans the tank well, keeps the water pristine. And it does, it does a really good job. It's not super noisy. I know I did have some times where it almost sounded like the FX series, where you get that gurgling air noise because it's purging itself. I am not aware that these purge themselves, but ironically, both my canisters do it. They make that air noise gurgling. Let's go hook this up, see what she does. Okay, so I have it back. As you see, recyclable tote fits the unit perfectly. So the reason I have it in here is in the event that it should spring a leak, at least it'll catch a lot of the water, and hopefully I catch it in time. So as far as putting it back together, you just make sure that your adapter is still closed, that your lever is up. And there's only one way it can fit on, even though it does say in and out. The way it lines up, there's only one way to put it on, for those of you that don't have it. So as you see, it is seated. Just make sure it's seated even. and then you just take this lever, lock her down in place. So now it is connected. You can open your valve. You can hear the water. I can actually hear it filling up the space, and as you see, the mess I just made. So what you see there, just a little bit of that stuff was blowing through, so that's stuff that's actually in the lines. That's probably the only downfall, but once this is up and running, that'll take care of it pretty quick. Now, as you see, I didn't have to do anything to it, just open the valve. So I just checked to make sure there's no leaks. It's locked down. This is wide open, so it's definitely pushing water. So when I knew it was time to clean, it was probably running, and I'm going to adjust it to give you an idea. It was running right about there, give or take a little bit more. So that's quite a flow reduction versus this. So that was a good indicator or indication for me. It was time to clean it. Well, there it is, folks. I've got it adjusted there at the valve, not full tilt, but certainly enough to create oxygen, because I don't run an air stone in this one. All of this stuff will clear out shortly. So that's it, folks. I mean, it to me is the 407 is a good filter. It definitely gets the job done. Certainly easy to clean. I'll show you now that the light is on. Doesn't really do it justice because you're getting reflections. But that water is clear, and that's where the other 407 is on. I hope that gave you a little insight, an update on the 407 Series 7, the new canister from Fluval. Definitely is a great filter. It certainly gets the job done, and keeps the tank clean, moves enough water to keep it aerated. Well, definitely, if you're looking to get a canister, definitely check out the Fluval 407 Series 7. As you saw, maintenance is easy, 6+ months, as long as you're not grossly overfeeding your tank and they're not super dirty fish. You know, I probably could have let it go, but it was a down day today, nothing to do. So I figured I would clean it, being I had done the water change 2 weeks ago. You know, and all is good in the world, and the Aquaclear is still running, so I don't have to worry about any biological filter or media that I lost. And adding the additional biomedia will, you know, give it surface to grow on. So with that, folks, I appreciate you stopping by. Again, this is Rob with the Freeze Aquariums. Have a great rest of your weekend. Keep your sleeves wet. Peace.